Well, thanks, Lloyd. You're with the Morning Edition, and this morning we're pleased to pass on tips for you all parenting infant and toddlers under present circumstances. Joining us this morning, then, is Dr. Marcia Bassett, consultant pediatrician and chief of service in the Department of Pediatrics at the Princess Margaret Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Bassett.
Thank you so much.
I think first things first, are babies and children more at risk of contracting COVID?
So the answer to that is yes. I think in the not so distant past, we were thinking that maybe they were not, because we hadn't been hearing much about cases in infants and children. But even in the news this morning, you report that we have a case here in the Bahamas. Infants and children can contract COVID-19, and we have to protect them the way we are protecting ourselves as adults. We have heard that they have not had very severe cases, not very many, but we know that they get infected. There are those who have severe infections, and we have heard of deaths in pediatrics as well.
On that note, then, how should we manage with bringing home a new baby in this environment?
So I know that new parents are very stressed during this time, especially for first-time parents. This can be a very difficult time. They don't have their social support. Grandparents can't come over. I think what we have to do is remember the two overriding principles. Number one, social distancing. So we shouldn't have grandparents, friends, people over just to visit our new baby. And number two is good hygiene practices. So wash hands, wash hands, wash hands, wash hands, wash hands. But being practical for a new mom, I want to remind them, one, babies cry. That's the way they communicate with us. And so, use all the techniques in your armamentarium to soothe them, singing and rocking and swaddling and all those good things. And when you can't get them to soothe and you're kind of at your wit's ends, put them down for a minute and take a break. And I also want to tell new moms that it is okay for them to take a break, get some me time, put your feet up, have a cup of tea, take a long bath, but also to engage the other people in your household. Let dad give a feed. Get those older toddlers involved so they can bring diapers or help you throw things in the garbage. And then, your pediatrician is always available to answer questions for you as well.
Now, speaking of toddlers, they're the rambunctious group. So, first of all, what do we do to keep them healthy?
So in general, for your household, keeping your household healthy, again, the overriding principles. One, of social distancing. So this is not the time for play dates and sleepovers and to go ask Grammy to babysit them for just a couple of minutes. Grandparents, really, we should be protecting them. So keeping them away from our toddlers, unfortunately, especially if they are over 60 and if they have any medical conditions. But also at home, you want to do things like enforce washing hands. We want to make sure we wipe down and disinfect all our surfaces. We want to make sure those toys get cleaned, the stuffed toys, the ones that they run around and put in their mouths. We want to just make sure that everything in the house, as much as we can, keep clean. Toddlers, though, they touch, they put things in their mouth, so we have to be extra careful with them.
Yeah, it's easier said than done.
Absolutely.
So in terms of hand washing techniques, what is a good approach to making it all sink into them?
So teaching a toddler to wash their hands is probably one of the best things you can do, because this is something that they're going to remember for all of their life. So you have to make it fun because they're toddlers. We recommend that you remember the principles of hand washing. Like, that sounds like very fancy, but it's not really. So you let them wet, lather, so put on soap, then you scrub. And scrubbing you have to make fun, because if not, they just let the water run over. So scrub, you rub and scrub and rub and scrub and rub and scrub, and you want to do that for 20 seconds. You've heard, I'm sure, them talking about happy birthday twice. So rub and scrub and rub and scrub, and then you rinse and dry. So you make that a part of their everyday, before they eat, after they've been playing, of course, after they go to the bathroom, and you make it become such a routine that it becomes a fun game. That's the best way to teach toddlers about washing their hands.
You talk about games. What else can we do with toddlers at home? They're away from school, to get them, I guess, interested again in what they should be doing in the classroom and not to fall too far behind when they eventually return.
Yay, happy day. So I think the best advice I can give parents of toddlers is to try to keep a routine at home. So routine and toddlers go together. So make sure it may take a little bit of planning on the parent part, but you have to make sure that you have a time to wake up, some kind of, have breakfast, some kind of morning activity. Decide when it's going to be lunch, and some afternoon activity. I'm hoping that either your morning activity or your afternoon activity involves going outside and playing, right? Carry your ball and your toys outside, gardening toys. Remind them to wash hands, clean their toys before they come inside. And wash hands when they get back inside. So some routine to their day keeps them a little more sane and not keep them bouncing off the wall so much.
And keep the parents sane.
Keep the parents sane, yes.
You talk about taking them outside to play, and I know there are some parents who probably adverse to even going outside, but how long should they be outside? Is there a certain time limit?
So I wouldn't put a time limit on being outside if you are in your own home environs. Mm-hmm. So I think it's okay for kids to go outside. They should go outside. They need some fresh air. They need to run, get rid of some of that energy so that you can be all right in the evening. So yes, it's okay for them to go outside. And like I said earlier, carry their toys out, ride their bikes, let them kick their balls, anything that'll keep them occupied for a little bit of time. That's perfectly okay.
Now, I know you said in terms of newborns, cut out the visitations that typically happen around this time for a newborn. That's the same applies in the case of a toddler, correct?
Same applies for toddler. We want to remember social distancing. So no play dates, no sleepovers. They should only play within the confines of their environment. So with their siblings, at home, I would not recommend play dates.
There is a lot of talk about wearing masks. Do you advise children to put on masks as well? And children as young as, let's say, in the toddler range?
So, wearing masks has become a very controversial subject. And I don't know that there is any data to say yes or no. The new thing out in the last couple of days, and even in the States, the CDC is talking about maybe when you go out, you should wear a mask, even if it's a homemade mask, one made of cloth. I would say to parents they need to individualize that recommendation to see, first of all, kids shouldn't be going out a lot. But if they go out, whether they should be wearing a mask, I think is up to the parent. But remember that toddlers don't like things on their face, so I think that's going to be a difficult task, but it really has to be individual. And I do want to say one last thing about our recommendations and being individual is that parents really have to decide how best they want to safeguard their families. And so all of these recommendations we give, you have to adapt to your own family and make sure that you protect them the best way you can.
Okay, just to get the message across, if I were to go out to run an errand, can they go with me?
Good question. So in general, we would prefer that kids stay at home. But we know in our social circumstances there may be parents who need to take their kids with them. In the best scenario, I would say if you have another adult with you who could stay with them in the car, that would be ideal for me. I would prefer that you not take them to the food store or out to the drugstore where there are going to be more people than we would like them to be in contact with.
And one last question, just going back to the mask. If a parent were to opt to have a child wear a mask, do you think it's better to have the cloth ones or something of a different material? I know they have different materials.
So we have been recommending in the community, if you're just moving about, maybe a cloth mask is okay. Remember, we are trying to protect you from me and me from you. So I think in the current recommendations, a cloth mask could probably be okay. It is difficult for me to recommend anything more than that because we really are trying to reserve as much equipment as we can for our medical providers in the hospital.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bassett. Some wonderful
Welcome.
information there. Stay with the Morning Edition. We have more coming up for you when we return.